For years, the WNBA's most established veterans wanted fans to believe they were the architects of the league's new golden era. But after failed negotiations froze free agency and pushed the offseason into total paralysis, that narrative began to unravel. Sophie Cunningham finally called it out for what it was, using her podcast to openly mock veteran leadership and expose the hidden damage caused by resentment toward breakout stars like Caitlin Clark. The question now is unavoidable. Why are veteran leaders actively working against the very players driving the league's survival and growth? And how much damage will be done before fans, especially those rallying behind the fever, finally say they've had enough? At the center of this crisis are the numbers, because numbers determine who gets paid and who is left waiting with no guarantees. The WNBA Players Association entered negotiations demanding 30% of the league's gross revenue and a salary cap set at $10.5 million. This was not a modest increase. It was a dramatic jump that would push average salaries close to seven figures and allow top contracts to reach as high as $2.5 million. The union justified this demand by pointing to unprecedented growth, record-breaking television ratings, sold-out arenas, and a level of cultural buzz the league had never experienced before. Their argument was simple. If the league is finally generating real money, players should receive their share before deductions for travel, charters, lodging, or expansion costs. League officials responded by completely reframing the math. Instead of revenue being shared at the gross level, the league proposed deducting roughly 80% first to cover operating expenses, travel, infrastructure, and expansion. Only what remained would be labeled net revenue. From that smaller pool, the league offered players 70%, paired with a salary cap starting at just $5 million. In real terms, that proposal cut the available player compensation to less than half of what the union was demanding. With projected league revenue around $350 million, the union's plan would place roughly $105 million toward player pay and benefits. Under the league structure, after deductions, that number dropped dramatically, leaving players with closer to $49 million. This was never just a disagreement over percentages. It became a standoff over whether the league's boom was real and who deserved to benefit from it first. The union repeatedly pointed to Caitlin Clark, whose arrival doubled TV ratings and ignited merchandise sales across the league. Their message was that the money clearly exists. League executives countered by warning that failing to cover long-term costs could jeopardize the league's future in exchange for short-term gains. Week after week, emails and proposals moved back and forth, but the gap never narrowed. The union leaned into momentum and fan support while the league clung to a conservative financial model rooted in older men's league structures. The result was total gridlock. No signings, no trades, no progress. Just a growing sense that both sides were speaking entirely different languages. For players trapped in uncertainty and fans desperate for momentum, these figures stopped being abstract. They became an immovable wall. January 9th arrived with no agreement in place, and the collective bargaining agreement officially expired. By the following morning, everything shut down. Free agency froze. Trades stopped. Expansion drafts for Portland and Toronto were suspended. Agents' phones filled with unanswered calls. For the first time in years, the WNBA offseason went completely silent. Teams, players, and coaches were locked in place under an official moratorium. The only communication came from weekly union emails repeating the same message: no updates, no movement. Sophie Cunningham, herself stuck in free agency limbo, publicly called the situation ridiculous on her podcast and warned that a lockout was becoming inevitable. The league's official stance was that nothing could resume until a new deal was finalized. Privately, frustration exploded. Veterans with guaranteed contracts watched younger teammates' futures hang in the balance. Rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, who had just fueled record attendance and ratings, saw their momentum grind to a halt. Expansion teams that had planned splashy debuts were left frozen. Opportunity was slipping away in real time. By January 17th, the CBA had fully expired and the moratorium became the new reality. No negotiations, no deals, no discussion. For players, it meant months of uncertainty with no ability to plan their futures. For owners, it meant rosters locked at the exact moment the league was positioned for its biggest leap in decades. Headlines framed it as a negotiation dispute, but inside the league it felt like being locked out of the future everyone had worked toward. Fans who had just filled arenas and crashed online merchandise stores watched the chaos unfold in disbelief. Social media flooded with questions. Would the 2026 season even happen? Why would the league risk its own momentum? Excitement quickly turned into frustration as the boom powered by new stars was put on ice. Caitlin Clark did not merely enter the WNBA, she detonated expectations. During her rookie season, average viewership surged to 1.32 million per game, nearly tripling the previous year's numbers. Merchandise sales didn't inch upward. They exploded, climbing 236% as Fever jerseys sold out nationwide. At Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the crowd transformed. Louder, younger, and larger than ever before. Attendance among fans under 30 spiked, and opening month ticket sales reached heights the league hadn't seen in over 20 years. Clark was not alone. Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell turned Indiana into the hottest ticket in the league. Fever home games sold out within minutes, and massive road crowds followed them city to city. The surge extended beyond arenas. Social media erupted with highlights, debates, and viral clips, pulling in fans who had never followed the WNBA. Networks rushed to add broadcasts. Sponsors lined up. The data was undeniable. The league's growth was real, driven by a new generation bringing energy, style, and momentum that shattered old narratives about limited appeal. Yet veteran voices were quick to push back. As sold-out crowds became routine, parts of the old guard began drawing lines. Some openly questioned whether the popularity surge was sustainable or simply a temporary phenomenon tied to one player. Comments suggesting Clark hadn't proven anything yet became common. The implication was clear: not everyone was ready to pass the torch. The skepticism went beyond words. Over the past 2 seasons, highlight packages quietly skipped some of Clark's biggest moments. Broadcasts cut away from Fever celebrations to spotlight veterans. League social channels were slow to post Clark's record-setting performances. Fans noticed. Platforms like X and Reddit filled with comparisons showing Clark's viral plays receiving muted promotion. The tension spilled onto the court, where icy handshakes and clipped post-game remarks reflected deeper resentment. Meanwhile, the Players Association, led largely by veterans, insisted value came from longevity, not breakout impact. Sophie Cunningham refused to stay quiet. On January 15th, she unleashed her frustration on her podcast, bluntly calling the CBA situation so dumb that it was heading toward a lockout. When asked about progress, she repeated the word again and again, emphasizing how pointless the endless emails had become. Her criticism wasn't subtle. She mocked the negotiation theater, the excuses, and the lack of leadership. More importantly, she called out veteran leaders clinging to control while claiming credit for growth they didn't create. Cunningham raised questions about conflicts of interest, pointing to reports of veteran leaders with business ventures outside the WNBA. Fans took notice immediately. Backlash exploded online. For many supporters, this was personal. New stars had revitalized the league, and fans wanted that momentum protected. Sophie's comments became a rallying cry for those fed up with stalled progress and internal politics. The fan response was swift. Refund requests surged. Hashtags like #SaveOurSeason trended for days. Season ticket holders threatened to walk. Local sponsors fielded angry calls. In Indiana, ticket brokers reported a spike in refunds within 48 hours of the moratorium. Businesses that depended on game night crowds grew anxious. Fan groups organized petitions and letter campaigns. One group even rented a billboard outside league offices demanding action. The message was unmistakable. Fans saw themselves as part of the league's success, and they refused to be sidelined. Then the pressure escalated. Sophie Cunningham signed with Project B, a new global league backed by tech investors, offering contracts exceeding $2 million, more than 8 times the WNBA Supermax, along with equity stakes. She had declined the offer before. This time, chaos made the choice easy. Project B promised ownership, international exposure, and financial security. Other leaders followed. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, both WNBA executives, were already co-founders of Unrivaled, another rival league offering million-dollar deals. Even Nneka Ogwumike joined Project B as an advisor shortly after the moratorium.